Good afternoon. Welcome to our July 8th, 2020 Level-Headed Perspective. Today we're going to go through and talk about some COVID-19. Don't think it is. We're streaming live, I've been told. According to this, I'm not. So go check your thing there. Hi, guys. So it's always fun to start with some technical difficulties right off the giddy up. And we'll see how this goes. If you can hear me, wonderful. If you can't hear me, I'm so sorry about that. We'll have to see what happens. But we're going to keep moving. According to this, my microphone's moving up and down. So double check me, guys. Let me know if we are broadcasting or not. Hopefully we are, and everybody will know that yesterday was my wife Danielle and I's 19-year anniversary. So congratulations to me for finding someone who would tolerate me for 19 years. Oh my goodness. We had a wonderful evening, and I'm hoping that the next 36 years are just as wonderful as the last 19 have been. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's run through our level-headed perspective for the week. Let me share the screen here with you. And this will be fun. I'm going to have some technical fun. Isn't this great when you're trying to save something? Share the screen. Let's go to screen 2. Now, the question becomes, can you see it? Hopefully you can. So let's start with our level-headed update. Level-headed means keeping your head when those around you are losing theirs. So a couple things to make note of. This is before the quarantine. For some folks, this is after, for all you fans out there that love Disney. Day 35 of the quarantine. Can you blink a little more quietly, please? I mean, for goodness sake. Zoom meeting audio only. Zoom meeting with video. I wondered where I had seen these Zoom meetings before, and it finally came rushing back to me. I understood what the Zoom meetings reminded me of. Tell me if you remember these days. Expectations versus reality. So working remotely, what my family thinks I do, what commuters think I do, what I think I do, and what I actually do. This is the dream. This is the reality, that whether you're working at home or in an office anywhere, I think that kind of follows suit. The dream, a beautiful bowl of salad. The reality, Starbucks out the yin-yang. I love this when your boss asks for proof that you're in the hospital. Now you really have to take, if you don't think this is funny, there's something wrong with you. You need to take a look at this. This guy has his Apple earbuds in his nose. That's beautiful. So homeschooling, there's a lot of talk about whether or not the kids are going back to school, and homeschooling imagined and homeschooling reality. This one is one of my favorites. Me reading about coronavirus 30 seconds after I swore I would never read about coronavirus again. That's it, I'm done. Watching the daily death toll, isn't this wonderful? Does it continue on a daily basis? Yes, it does. So this is something I talk a lot about, red buckets, and this is one of those black hole red bucket items. It's something I have no control over. And when we continue to watch and focus on the things we have no control over, what does it do to us? It leaves us feeling powerless, helpless, lowers your resistance levels. So there is good news. Come here, I can feed you with some good news. Let's start with this. On Monday, April 13th, I started tracking the recovery rate around the world. So that was a couple months back. We had 435,000 people that had actually recovered worldwide from the coronavirus. Today, as of today, over 7 million people have officially recovered around the world, and that number is growing significantly every day. There's some other good news that's been out there. You have to go digging for good news. The bad news is easy to find. That's headlines, it's fear tactics, it's trying to get you to watch the news and tune in. There is good news out there. You have to look for it. CDC, coronavirus mainly spreads through person-to-person contact and does not spread easily on contaminated surfaces. That's good news. That's good to know. I mean, initially that wasn't the news we were getting. You know, although the world's full of suffering, it's also full of overcoming it. That's a quote from Helen Keller that I love. And in crisis, really, facts are your allies. So I believe that every single life is valuable. I want to make sure that I emphasize this. We had someone that made mention that, oh, an actor just died of the coronavirus. Now we should really be paying attention. It doesn't matter who you are. Every single life is valuable. I believe every COVID-19 casualty is a tragedy. I believe that every casualty is a tragedy. I believe that we must put every tragedy into perspective or we will have panic. So there are three perspective questions that I continually ask. How's the US doing with COVID-19 versus other countries? Is it getting better or worse? How does COVID-19 compare with other diseases? So let's start with some perspective. Compared to what? How is the US doing with the COVID-19 versus other countries? Should we be looking at absolute number of casualties or the number as a percentage of the population? So in other words, if a country has a higher population, wouldn't it stand to reason that they would have a higher number of casualties? So I read a headline, a beautiful headline the other day that jumped out at me, and I said, oh, this is just great information. That said the United States has surpassed Italy and the UK combined for total COVID-19 deaths. I said, okay, all right, good to know. Great headline, grabs your attention, tells you that everything is coming to an end. But in my world, I want to have some perspective. So give me perspective in regards to this. So here is your perspective. The population of the United States is 327.2 million. Italy, 60 million. UK, 66 million. We actually have to add Germany, France, the UK, Italy, Spain, Canada, and Sweden all together to equal the population of the United States. So to say that the US has more COVID deaths than Italy and the UK, well, we have 3 times the population, 5 times the population. So what is the virus mortality per 100,000? So that's looking at it per your population. So how are we doing versus the rest of the world? So the United States, 39 out of every 100,000 is our mortality rate. We look at Spain leading at 61, Italy, Sweden, France, Canada, a little bit behind us. Now that's my first perspective question. The next question is it getting better or worse? Well, according to the headlines right now, it's getting worse. It's way worse. It's horribly worse. But not really. The daily virus mortality rate has significantly dropped from where it used to be. And right now, the US active COVID-19 cases, how many are actually in serious or critical condition? Of the cases that we currently have, less than 1.2% are serious or critical. Some other perspective, we have Sweden who did nothing. They did not do a lockdown. They said practice social distancing and be smart. So there was some articles that were put out. Sweden's prime minister rejects criticism of coronavirus strategy. He says rather than a failure of strategy, he said increasing tests has led to a spike in reported infection rates. But if you look at people in the hospital with COVID, the number is diminishing, as is the number of deaths. They also said, the Sweden's COVID expert, the world went mad with lockdowns. He said in the same way that all drugs have side effects, measures against a pandemic also have negative effects. He said at an authority like ours, which works with a broad spectrum of public issues, it's natural to take these aspects into account. He was talking about how pandemics and restricting movement can also create problems, including domestic abuse, mass unemployment, which we wouldn't know anything about that here in the United States. But mass unemployment and loss of economic resources. So how have they done versus us? Well, they are reporting 12 more deaths per 100,000 than what we are here in the United States, and they did not shut down their economy. So interesting, it's just a little bit of perspective. Some will say that they have done the wrong thing. Some think they have done the right thing. I don't know, you make your own decisions, but it's a piece of perspective. Now, New York City is the hardest hit with the COVID-19. All of the deaths, 70% of all of the deaths in New York were in New York City. And how is New York City doing currently? Well, you can see in this slide, it shows where the death, the cases, new COVID cases that were announced, and you can see that these numbers are trailing off significantly. Age under 45, age 45, so few have died from COVID-19. So who are the people that are most affected by this? We've actually talked a little bit about this before, but I want to hit on this a little bit more. Really the biggest, a new study I just read about Ohio is 53% of everyone that has died from COVID-19 in Ohio is over the age of 80. That's an interesting number. As far as our slides go, or showing our screen, this is under 45, not very many, 0 to 17, 18 to 44, 45 to 64, which is in my age demographic, 65 and above. Those are the people that are at the highest risk. And the highest risk are those that have underlying health conditions. 2 or more puts you at a much, much higher rate. So how are they at predicting the numbers? Governor Cuomo said New York projections were all wrong, but it's too early to tell if reopening is working. He also said, but we were all wrong. We all failed. I remember talking about this before. It used to be the buck stops here. Person in charge, here is where the buck stops. I loved how he said, no, the buck stops over there. Another piece of the puzzle that I think is very interesting is, well, there's 2 things. The first thing I want to point out is in Sweden, they were talking about there are more cases popping up of COVID-19. But they've also said, listen, you have to take into perspective that we have way more people being tested now because we didn't have the tests early on. So it's identifying more people actually have it. So what they said is, let's pay attention to what's going on in the hospitals and how many people are dying from it, because those numbers are going down even though the number of new cases is going up, mainly because we're testing more people. So that's an important thing to keep in mind and think about as we continue on with this. The COVID-19 reported death rates include people who actually have not tested positive for COVID. So this was a report back in June 28th, the end of June. It says probable deaths, 4,670. That is 1 in 4 had not been tested, but showed signs of the COVID, had symptoms. So they are assuming, the CDC is assuming they had COVID. Coronavirus 2019, case count probable. You will notice this if you're looking at any of the sites. The good news is that they also did a study in New York where they did an antibody test. And that is people that maybe have had COVID-19. If you have, your body creates an antibody to fight it. So they can do a test to see if that antibody is in your system. Based on the test results, they had, I think, 3,000 people that they tested. Based upon the find, they can project that 2.7 million people had actually been infected, which means the mortality rate would be closer to 0.5% instead of 7%. That's a big number. Here's some of the newest headlines that I've been reading. How Texas staggered into the coronavirus disaster. Swaggered, not staggered, swaggered. How Texas blew it. They did horrible. So let's have some perspective. These are your top 10 states, population-wise, and millions of people. Your largest state is California, population with about 40 million people. Texas is second with 29 million people. Florida, New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, Georgia, Michigan, New Jersey. So it would stand to reason that if Texas has the second highest amount of people, they would have the second largest death rate, correct? Not so fast. New York has the largest death rate, then followed by New Jersey, Massachusetts, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Michigan, California, Connecticut, Florida, Louisiana, Texas is not even in the top 10. So COVID-19 deaths per 100,000, 148 in New Jersey, 128 New York, Texas way down the line here with 8. One of the things that we look at is we saw daily new cases, 5,000. That was a headline that I saw. That was on June 28th. At that particular time, they had tested 2 million people. As of today, they've tested 2.5 million people, and they have somewhere around 2,800 deaths. So those are some of the headlines that I've seen. Let's talk a little bit about Ohio as an example. So I want to touch on this because we've got so many numbers that are working out here. Let's go with stop my slideshow. Bear with me if I can. I'm going to share my screen. So these are some of my Texas numbers. Let's take a look at Ohio numbers if I can. This is in the United States. We've had about 3 million coronavirus cases. We're now at about 135,000. We've got 1.4 million just in the US. In Ohio, we've had about 2,998 deaths in Ohio. Something very interesting to point out is 2,100 of those deaths in Ohio, which represents 70%, are in nursing homes. So this is one of our our most vulnerable demographics of our society, and they are by far being hit the worst. If we add in prisons to the nursing homes, they represent closer to 75% of all deaths in Ohio. I thought that was a very interesting statistic to show folks, and so that's some information as far as what's going on in Ohio. So just food for thought here on this. Okay, let me go back to my slide now if I can. And let's go here, close, share my screen. It's always fun jumping around. That is not it. Or maybe it is. Okay, so back to the slideshow. Resume. Oh, have you ever seen that cartoon where you had Garfield and he's standing above his computer with a sledgehammer and he says, just one more time, do it, just one more time. That's kind of where I'm at right now. So some of the things to think about is we have to keep our immune system strong. One of the things that we have to look at during this time of crisis is that you need to make sure that you continue to eat healthy, you exercise. Right now, there's a lot of news media, there's a lot of underlying or undertow of messages that are out there, which is stay home, if you're sick, stay home and die quietly. The reality is that you have to stay active. You need to get out and do things and have some fun, have a good exercise, get a good night's sleep. Don't stress over the headlines. Turn off the news is one of the things I often will tell people. It will extend your life. Now, once we get on the other side of the coronavirus, one of the things that we have to think about is what's going to be the new message that comes when we get to the other side of coronavirus? Now, think about it for a second. Is it going to be, okay, coronavirus is over, everything is good, you don't need to tune in to the news? No, absolutely not. So think about what are some of the messages that we're going to get in the future. Could we have the same perspective problem with your money when we get past this? Well, once COVID-19 is no longer the threat, what do you think the message is going to be about the stock market or the economy or the recovery? What do you think the headlines are going to read? Could be something like the sky is falling, Chicken Little. Chicken Little, nowhere to be found. The sky is falling. The sky, wait a minute, that's my line. So is it a good idea to watch the stock market every day? So I talk about this all the time. Are you investing for a week? Are you investing for a day? Are you investing for a week, a month, 6 months, a year? I love how you can check stocks or the price of the market on a daily basis. What did it do today? The reality is that how long are you going to need your money? How long do you need to have a plan for? So a good plan takes volatility into account. But if we just back up 5 years, what if we back up 10 years? What does the market look like? Now, what is the market going to hold for us as we go forward? I don't know. My crystal ball is a little hazy. I don't know about yours. Who's going to be the next president? I don't know. Who's going to be in charge of Congress? I don't know. I know who I'm going to vote for, and that's about as far as I can go in those realms. So one of the things that I have to make sure of is that we have a plan that takes volatility into an account. We're not planning for a short term, we're planning for a long term. Now think about this, the consequences of this prolonged shutdown of our country and our economy is definitely going to have a negative effect. You cannot print $5 trillion of funny money and then steal $3 trillion a month from your country by putting 40 million people out of work without there being some consequences. So you have to have a plan that plays into this volatility. You have to understand that we've had a pretty good V recovery of the market. But as we move forward, the volatility is not over. When the longer we stay in shutdown, the longer it's going to take us to recover. These are some of the record plunges for April retail sales. Yahoo Finance. 40.7 million people filed jobless claims amid coronavirus outbreak. Make no mistake, folks, we are going to have to pay the price for shutting things down. So the roads may be a little rocky in the future. Your plan needs to account for those things. So for our clients, we're accounting for that kind of a volatility. Don't get too cocky too quick. Just note that we're here for you to guide you through the murky waters that lay ahead. Now, some things have changed with the coronavirus, but some things in life have definitely changed. So this, if you recall the run on toilet paper, the originator of social distancing, here's Wilson. Watch the Corona pounds. I love this. This is, my kids know exactly. My wife knows exactly what this is. This is Thor before Infinity Wars. This is Thor after the fact. She was not happy when we went into that movie. But some things have never changed. Some things that have never changed. This is kind of the Forrest Gump. And then one day, just like that, coronavirus just up and disappeared like Ebola did. So at one point in time, the World Health Organization said, Ebola, the world will never be the same. This epidemic could last forever. It did not. This too shall pass. When I was a boy, I would see scary things in the news. My mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are willing to help. So make note of the helpers. Make note of the people who are on the front lines, our healthcare workers, our doctors, our nurses, our dentists, all of the folks that are out there working and volunteering their time. Say prayers for these folks. Say prayers for the people that are at most risk, our elderly, our 80-year-old plus in nursing homes, our people that have underlying health conditions. Let's say prayers for them. Let's be hopeful. Fear is absolutely contagious, but so are faith, hope, and love. So we need those things. The weeds of despair are way too prominent. You can find them anywhere. All you have to do is turn on any of the news stations that have 3 letters in front of their name. They all are reporting the same thing. Watch us, watch us, watch us. Tune in, tune in, tune in. The world is coming to an end. The sky is falling. Chicken Little, pay attention. The reality is the world is not coming to an end. It has changed. We need to be cognizant of that. But this too shall pass. Understand that we still have rocky roads ahead of us. We still have recoveries. We need to get things back moving sooner rather than later. Be smart, be safe, but understand that there should be focus on the things we can control and not focus in spending all your time and effort and your energy on the things that we can't control. If you focus on the things you can't control, it's going to cause you to really have despair. It's going to depress you and all of those things. You focus on the things that you can control. And the one thing that you are in complete and total control over is your own attitude. So I implore you to have an attitude of gratitude, to be thankful for the things that you have, and to also be safe, say prayers for those that you love. With that, I want to tell you all that we're here. If you need us, feel free to call on us. We have touched base with almost all of our clients. We are in a place we're now running our appointments. You have options. You can do a Zoom meeting. You can come in. Folks can wear a mask. We can wear a mask. If you're comfortable without it, you don't have to wear it while you're in here with us. Just be smart, be safe, and God bless all of you. With that, if you need us, call us, and feel free to spread this message of hope to anyone who's watching or anybody that you think might need it. Share the video. We are broadcasting live on Facebook, so hi to all of you that are watching on Facebook Live. Feel free to share this. It's a little piece of perspective. The headlines are easy to see, but getting the details and getting a little deeper, you really got to go looking for that. And that's what we continue to do for all of our clients and for all of you watching. So with that, we wish you the best. If you need us, let us know, and God bless.